Can I get a roll call, please?
Mr. Bowman?
Here.
Mercado's here. Mr. Dawson? Ms. Downs? Here. Mr. Kaderis? Mr. Kurtz?
Here.
Mr. Natale? Mr. Strollo? Mr. Salmont?
Here.
Mr. Affey?
Here.
Ms. Blake? Mr. Hilsinger? We have a quorum.
Thank you. Will Commission Public please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, I know there's a lot of people here. If anyone happens to be here for number 2 on our new business, which is the cultivator, removing the cultivator, there was an issue, something with the way it was put in the paper or something, and we are not having that tonight. That will be in 2 weeks. I'm sure you're probably all here for the first thing, which we're going to get to, but if there is anyone here for number 2, it is not happening tonight. It would be at our next meeting in 2 weeks. So with that, can I hear the call for number 1, the zone change on behalf of 869 West Main Streets?
Petition for a zone change on behalf of 869 West Main Street Associates. Applicant Andrea Gomes. Agent, applicant is requesting to change from C3 to R20 zoning districts to the Affordable Housing District pursuant to Section 44A.5 of the Cheshire zoning regulations for 3 parcels located on 869 West Main Street. Assessors Map 49, Lot 301, Mountain Road, Assessors Map 49, Lot 72, and Mountain Road, Assessors Map 49, Lot 76.
Thank you, and representing the applicant tonight?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening. Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, nice to see you all again. For the record, Andrea Gomes. I'm an attorney at Hinckley Allen in Hartford here tonight on behalf of the applicant. With me tonight are Mark Forlenza and John Milone on behalf of the applicant. We also have Ryan McAvoy, our consulting civil engineer with SLR. And then we have Kwesi Brown with us. He's the U.S. Manager of Transportation Engineering for SLR. Unfortunately, Dave Sullivan could not be here tonight as he is away. So we have Mr. Brown here pinch hitting for Mr. Sullivan. Few procedural housekeeping matters before we get into the substance of the presentation. The Commission should have before a supplemental materials package that we submitted to town staff on July 2nd, in which we really just addressed questions and comments that were raised by the Commission and members of the public at the May 29th public hearing. We will be going through through that package throughout tonight's presentation. Accompanying that presentation is obviously a PowerPoint, which we did submit to staff in advance. The Commission should also have hard copies, and additional copies have been provided to Mr. Glidden for the file. With that, we will dive right in. Mike, would you advance the slides? Thank you. So during the May public hearing, there was quite a bit of discussion regarding Connecticut General Statutes 830G and the Commission's, I'll say, frustration with the limited review standard under 830G. So I wanted to start tonight's presentation with a friendly reminder to the Commission that this is not an 830G application. We filed the application under the Commission's own Affordable Housing Development Zoning Regulation, Section 44A. As we explained during the May public hearing, that provision allows an applicant to proceed with a 2-step approvals process. First, a zone change, and then a special permit with site plan approval. We are obviously taking advantage of that 2-step process and starting with the zone change petition, which is why we're all here tonight. The regulation requires that an applicant submit a number of items with their zone change petition, including a conceptual site plan, architectural plans, and a variety of other materials, which we have also done. But most importantly, that regulation, specifically Section 44A51, which we have up on the screen here, provides that the Commission shall approve the zone change petition to the Affordable Housing District unless it finds that the denial is required to protect public health and safety matters, which outweigh the need for affordable housing and cannot be addressed by reasonable changes to the plan. So this is a narrow review standard, particularly for a zone change petition, yes, and it is modeled after the 830G review standard. But again, it is still proposed pursuant to the Commission's own zoning regulation, not 830G. So to the extent the Commission is disappointed or concerned with its limited authority in voting on the application, application. It is not a result of the state statute, it's a result of the zoning regulation that we filed under. While we're on this applicable review standard, I'll remind the Commission again that Regulation 44A52, that's at the bottom of the screen, also asks the Commission in evaluating the application to consider two additional factors. Number one, the consistency with the Plan of Conservation and Development, and two, affordable housing need in the town and within the planning region. So regarding the Plan of Conservation and Development, the number of ways that we further the goals in the POCD are in our original application submission, specifically our March Tab 2 letter and our Tab 7 planning memo, but they include increasing opportunities for affordable housing in the region, promoting a variety of housing types, and enhancing housing mobility and choice across income levels. The Plan of Conservation and Development also identifies this site as a potential area for residential redevelopment, but I'll get back to that in just a moment. Regarding affordable housing need in Cheshire and the region, again, the Commission had with our March submission a fairly lengthy affordable housing needs memo that details the need for affordable housing in Cheshire specifically and the greater region. As of 2023, 3.52% of Cheshire's housing stock is affordable, and we've documented it well, but I'm sure the Commission has heard, it just takes turning on the news at this point, that housing costs are rising everywhere. There's a national housing shortage, and there, again, are a number of articles and resources on that. And as we discussed in May, the plan is also consistent with the Affordable Housing Plan, which lists as its primary goal increasing the total number of affordable housing units. So with that background, I'd like to go through the various other comments that we received in the May public hearing. And related to the discussion that we just had regarding the Plan of Conservation and Development, I believe it was you, Commissioner Selmont, who had questioned whether the Plan of Conservation and Development provision regarding the preservation of commercial properties in Cheshire impacted this application. And it does not. Again, the community, as I just said, furthers a number of goals in the POCD. But importantly, the POCD calls this specific site out for redevelopment. The POCD coins this area as the West Main Street Gateway Focus Area. And Mike, if you could just advance. Thank you. And it notes that it is the first substantial node of mixed residential and commercial uses along the corridor. The bottom paragraph here, which is a snip of page 8 of the POCD, refers to our site, the 2.26 acre commercial property, C3, located at 869 West Main, adjacent to the 8.5 acres of residential property in the R20. And it refers to that as a potential area for redevelopment. The POCD goes on to state, next slide, thank you, that new residential development in this area could be consistent with General Statutes 8-23, which encourages the expansion of housing opportunities and design choices to accommodate a variety of household types. I won't go on, but the text is certainly there. So on balance, this is through you, Mr. Chairman, to the rest of the Commission, but specifically to Mr. Selmont's question, the POCD contemplates and provides for residential development at this very location, notwithstanding its zoning designation as a C3. Moreover, I'll just note that the 44A provides that parcels zoned C3 as well as C1 and C2 are eligible for affordable housing district zone change. And lastly, just practically speaking, this property has been vacant for decades with little to no prospects for sale or development. So to mandate that an owner preserve the property or otherwise hold it for a potential future commercial development that may never come to fruition would be improper and frankly in violation of the owner's property rights. So one of the other questions we received, and Commissioner Broccato, I believe this was yours, was why not 100% affordable? And we did address that in our memo on July 2nd, but I'll summarize here, and there's a few reasons. As we discussed in May, the regulation 44A requires 25%, and we're providing 25% affordable, and penalizing an applicant for complying with the regulation or not going above and beyond and meeting some undefined threshold is not appropriate. But practically, again, practically speaking, as with all real estate developments, an applicant needs to ensure that the community proposed is financially viable, that it can be constructed and operated appropriately. And demanding that any applicant, not just this applicant, convert to a fully affordable development is not a simple task. It's not just a flick of a pen, and it would render a luxury community like this unbuildable for any developer. Put simply, the numbers need to work, and here they work at 25%. And then I'll just note from a public policy perspective, rejecting an affordable housing development for not being 100% affordable is really contrary to the intent of these types of regulatory provisions. Any step in the right direction, any provision of any affordable units is a step in the right direction towards increasing housing choice in a community. We also received a question, and I'm just going through all of these for efficiency purposes. They're not necessarily in order. I believe it was a member of the public, Mr. Chairman, that suggested that the building proposed would not be safe, or that there could be a potential issue with code compliance here because a fire truck ladder cannot reach the top floor of the building as proposed. There is no code provision, whether it be building code, fire safety, or fire prevention code, requiring that fire truck ladders have access to the tallest story of a building. If that were the case, obviously high-rise buildings wouldn't exist. And here, the building has been designed to be fully code compliant with sprinklers, multiple points of entry in case of emergency, among a variety of other characteristics that confirm its code compliance. Connecticut courts have confirmed that code compliance is dispositive of safety. It's enough to be code compliant for a conclusion that the building is safe, put differently. But of course, all of the code compliance issues will be hashed out during the building permit stage. Now, on the economic analysis, I know Commissioner Bowman, you had asked that we follow up with some additional information. We did provide some of that information in tab 4 of our July submission. Excuse me. I will note it's not relevant to the Commission's decision, but we did, of course, provide it as requested. On school children, the data collected, our consultant collected data from other multifamily communities in Cheshire, and also looked at other more comparable communities, so closer to the size and unit count and unit size that we have proposed here in other communities such as Wallingford and North Haven, and ultimately confirmed that our original estimate of 4 to 8 school children for this community was a conservative estimate. Our consultant also revised the fiscal analysis to reflect the latest fiscal year budget and the mill rate, and the net fiscal impact estimate was still positive at between approximately $122,000 and $195,000 net fiscal benefit. At tab 5 of our July package, the Commission will see a letter from the South Central Connecticut Regional Water Authority confirming it had received a copy of our application and confirmed that it had no comments on the zone change petition. Now, lastly, regarding staff comments, you will hear from Mr. McAvoy in just a moment regarding discussions with the fire chief and fire marshal on the proposed application. The Commission, I'm sure, has a very short memo jointly authored by the fire chief and fire marshal, but you'll hear about that in just a moment from Mr. McAvoy. The punchline is that we addressed their comments with our plan revisions, and Mr. Glidden informed me before tonight's meeting that the fire chief had confirmed that the proposed revisions were acceptable and addressed his concerns. Before we submitted our July package, Dave Sullivan did speak with the police chief regarding the traffic anticipated as a result of the community, and while the chief expressed some concerns regarding traffic congestion in the afternoon in particular, he did not indicate any concerns with safety. He reiterated the same in a July 2nd email, I believe it was, to Mr. Glidden, which the Commission should have a copy of. And in that email, he did admit that he does not have the expertise to challenge or verify our anticipated traffic counts. And again, I'd like to just highlight, the police chief noted that any additional traffic to the area could be an issue, which was a sentiment echoed by members of the Commission during the May 29th hearing and members of the public as well. But that position is not supported by the traffic data that's in the record, as will be supplemented by Mr. Brown in just a few moments. And moreover, if the Commission is taking the position that any addition of traffic to this area or any impacts to traffic in this area is unacceptable, then it would essentially be precluding or foreclosing any future developments that could potentially implicate this intersection. And that's just not a logical or solid position to stand on. Instead, the commission should do what we're suggesting here, which is look at the data, look at the application at hand, and make a determination based on that data. With that, I will hand it over to Mr. McAvoy. He'll touch on the site plan revisions, and then the commission will hear from Mr. Brown on the traffic. Thank you.
You can stay. We're not voting, so it's all right.
Good evening. For the record, my name is Ryan McAvoy. I'm a licensed professional engineer with SLR. My component to this presentation is going to be very brief, I assure you. This plan represents a colored image of our revised site plan on the overall area. Just to give some context, again, we went over the area and the surroundings at the last meeting, so I'm not going to go through that again. If you can go to the next slide, please, Mike. So essentially, the conversations that we had with Fire Marshal Kozlowski and Chief Kasner are that they wanted to ensure that our multiple islands were fully accessible by their fire apparatus. And also, there was a suggestion, I think taken very positively, and I think a good suggestion, that we have an opportunity for a additional driveway entrance in the southernmost portion of the property. So I'll start with the main entrances off West Main Street. West Main Street entrance is located on the left side of the screen. North is facing me. You may recall at the last meeting that plan, as we proposed it at the first meeting, originally contemplated a right out only, or a right turn exiting towards the center of town, and a left in coming from the center of town into the site, and a right in coming from the notch into the property. And I believe Mr. Strollo and other commission members raised some concerns about the possibility of a vehicle coming from the center of town, turning left into the property and crossing over, two lanes generally merging into one, roughly in that same area, coming in the opposite direction. So we did review the condition where we eliminate the left in, again, the left in coming from the center of town, turning into the site on West Main. And that would result in any vehicles coming into the property from the center of town, taking a left at the signalized intersection, and then down Mountain Road into our driveway entrance. That did not have a negative impact on the overall traffic conditions in the area, so we eliminated that left in to alleviate the concern about crossing over those two lanes of traffic. Additionally, we had signage in this mountable island that separates the in and the out, which we've eliminated as part of this plan. Similarly, in the Mountain Road entrance, the main entrance, here we have a mountable island that was consistent with our original plan, but we've removed signage that was present within that island. And lastly, probably the most substantial change of the plan is all the way on the right, the southernmost portion of the site. We do have a entrance drive only. This will allow for any vehicles coming into the property northbound on Mountain Road to enter in before encountering any potential queuing issues from Mountain Road traffic that may exist at the signalized intersection. So it just provides another opportunity to enter into the site. We still have the same number of parking spaces, so we still were proposing 2 spaces per unit. We did have to adjust the configuration of that turnaround area on the southernmost portion of the property, located over here. But we still have the similar characteristics in vehicles being able to turn around at the end of that. Same number of parking spaces with just the entrance-only configuration at the southernmost driveway. So it's our understanding that based on these revisions and based on the chief's review of these plans that he spoke to Mr. Glidden, I'll let Mr. Glidden speak to that, but it's our understanding that he's satisfied with these revisions.
The auxiliary driveway in the back is only one way,
Correct, entrance only.
and in the front is only entrance only.
Yes. So this is,
So you have 2 ins and only 1 out.
No, I'm sorry, I misstated. So this auxiliary driveway, it's a good term for it, at the
Yes.
southernmost point is entrance only.
Okay.
This driveway here will have this divided median here. Entrance will be on the right, exit will be on the left.
That's 2 ins. one out.
So 2 in, 1 out, and then you can get in, and right out here. So if you're heading southbound on Mountain Road, you would come in here and then take a left and head down towards,
The one
Cornwall.
on Route 70 was the one I was confused with. I thought that that was just an in, not an out.
right in, right out.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Bowman, question?
Is the curb with the right in and right out on West Main Street, is that a mountable curb?
Correct.
Thank you.
Good evening, members of the commission. For the record, my name is Kwesi Brown with SLR. I manage the transportation engineering practice within the company, and I've been doing this for about almost 25 years now. Ryan just reminded me that the last time I was before the commission, that was in 2014, so 10 years on, I'm happy to be back. Just wanted to touch on a few things. We did prepare a response to comments memo, which you have for the record, specifically focused on the traffic and safety comments that came up in the last public hearing. And I'm going to just sort of look at it from a broad perspective and then narrow down to the individual comments. But while it's our position that the previous or the proposed development originally does not really have a significant impact on traffic operations and does not really have a public health and safety impact or concerns, we nonetheless address the comments that have been provided from the last public hearing, and we made some revisions to the plans as you've heard Ryan talk about. So to start off, the key comments had really to do with traffic and safety and really congestion and safety. And I want to start off by saying that those two, traffic congestion and safety, are not necessarily related. You could have a situation where you have significant congestion and not have a safety issue. And vice versa, you could have a safety concern without necessarily increasing congestion. So I wanted to get that on the record to begin with. Then delving into the individual categories under traffic, one of the comments that sort of came through was the methodology that we use for the traffic generation, the side traffic trips. And this is something that we sometimes sort of, as traffic engineers, just sort of gloss over, but I just wanted to spend a little time talking about the ITE trip generation manual, which we use in our industry, which is really an industry standard. This manual has been used since 1976, which is as old as I am. So decades of research have gone into it, and the trip generation is based on different and several case studies for a particular land use. For instance, the land use that we used for this proposed development, there were over 60 case studies that were looked at before they finally came up with the trip generation rates that we use for the proposed development. So I wanted to get that on the record. So we are very comfortable with the ITE trip generation manual. It's a standard that we've used for decades in our industry, and it's very reputable. In addition, we took it upon ourselves to do traffic counts at the Quarry Village driveway, just to get a sense of what trips were being generated from that existing development. We did the traffic counts in November of 2023, and also did counts in February of 2024. And albeit that the Quarry Village development is about 98 units, so a little bit more than our proposed development. But in looking at the trips or counts from that driveway, as you can see from table 5, in the morning, it ranges from about 20 to 30 trips. And then in the PM, about 42 trips total, which is quite comparable to our development of 74 trips, where we we generated 27 trips in the AM and 29 trips in the PM. So I wanted to get that on the record as well. Additionally, we then used the ITE trip generation manual to just determine what trips could be generated or, for that existing site, as you can see at the bottom. And in the AM, you have 47 trips, and the PM, you have 56 trips, which again, and that is even conservative. So coming back to us using the ITE, it's even possible that when the development is built, it would even generate even fewer trips because we feel that IT is a little bit more conservative. So that has to do with just the methodology. If we can go to the next slide, please. And then we actually looked at the actual site trips, the volume. So we talked about 27 trips in the AM and 29 trips in the PM. This really is minimal compared to the overall traffic levels within the study area, or within the project limits. This is less than 2% increase in traffic during the peak hour within the study area. And so my professional opinion is not a significant increase in traffic on the adjacent roadway system. Now, what we also did was look at the as of right uses and what they could possibly generate for this existing site. And as you can see from the table, there are some as of right uses which would generate similar in terms of this proposed development, in terms of site trips. And there were some as of right uses that would generate significantly more. I mean, you look at the table and there's some uses that would generate 4 or 5 times more traffic than is being proposed for this development. So again, just wanted to point that out. Then beyond that, we talk about level of service and impact. It's my opinion, again, with the low volumes, next slide please, that this development will not have a significant impact on traffic operations or level of service. The previous traffic study that we did showed that there was no degradation in overall level of service, and that we maintained that position. We also looked at queuing. I think that was a comment that came up from the last public hearing in terms of queues. We did do counts in February at the West Main Mountain Road intersection, and the table 2 highlights the queuing. The numbers in red and blue are the queues that our model generated from our analysis, and the numbers in black are what we really counted. And as you can see, again, there is some similarity, there is some correlation. So basically, the queue counts that we undertook validates our traffic analysis, validates our model results. And again, as you can see, for the most part, we are not increasing queues on the adjacent roadway system, as you can see from the table. So shifting gears and then talking about safety. There was a comment about the impact of COVID on crash data and our safety analysis. So what we ended up doing was we had previously provided a combined data from 2019 to 2024 for our crash data. We then ended up breaking it up by year to really identify if there had been any impacts, post-COVID. And again, that information is in the memo, the response to comments memo. But again, there's really no correlation whatsoever. And if you look at the individual intersections and you look at the crashes that are recorded, there are some locations where, particular years on West Main at Mountain Road, where there were no crashes, and some maybe 3 or 4. In my opinion, those numbers are not significant. I've been doing this for almost 25 years, and that is not significant. And we are not making the situation worse. We don't see any safety issues as a result of this development. we've gone even further based on comments from the commission to try and minimize conflict points around the development, as you heard Mr. McAvoy talk about, introducing a right-in, right-out of West Main Street. That reduced conflict points with a left turn into the site. So with that said, again, it's my professional opinion that this proposed development will not have a public health or safety issue coming with it.
I'm sure we have a few questions up here. Mr. Strollo's going to start, and then we go to Mr. Bowman and Ms.
In this little book here, we have, page 2 is level of service, and it has, like, A, B, C, D, E, and F on the level of service. And the overall level of service, weekday afternoon peak hour, is at a D. And at West Main Street, Mountain Road, and Quarry Village, it's all at a D. And is that like a regular, like, if I got a D on my report card?
Yeah.
But now, what's an E? That's even worse?
Yeah, so.
Okay,
maybe-
and then an F is the worst?
Correct.
Okay, so it's just like a report card. So anyway, so that being said, is that the northbound left coming out is an F, okay? And southbound left through right is an E. But the overall average for level of service at the two intersections is a D. And I know that a state representative came in and said that they were working on the lights, and that was a discussion in the last public hearing. And understandably, I know what you're trying to do with the driveways, but the intersection is very high volume, and I think that's a problem no matter what, with any kind of development. The question I have is that with 75 units, at 2 vehicles per unit, that's 150 vehicles, correct? I mean, that's simple math. In the equations, I don't really see anything that values that many vehicles. I mean, I think that we're undervaluing the vehicles that are gonna be coming in and out of the thing.
Right.
And I'd like to add, okay? Last application we did on Route 10 with the industrial property, and I did testimony about traffic and parking and all that stuff. And just recently, I'm already experiencing the problems because I was a right-of-way with road stuff. So I'm very, very sensitive right now, because exactly what I said is happening at that development right now with that stuff. So, I mean, I know you have a lot of experience, I have a lot of experience. I told them. So knowing that, you know, I know traffic, I'm in it every day. And I feel that it still is a high-intense intersection. And we have to do whatever we have to do to keep it safe. I really think the equation for vehicles at 75 units should be 150. I mean, it's like, you know, that, to me, there's 2 vehicles per unit. That just makes sense.
I understand where you're coming from, that there's likelihood that you have 2 vehicles, but we are looking at the peak hour. And people have different travel patterns. You know, one person going to work may leave at 7, another person may leave at 9. And so that's what we are focusing our efforts on, not in terms of vehicle ownership. I concede that they may have 2 cars, but they are not all going during the peak hour.
They're still gonna be working hours, 8 to 5. I mean, so you're still in that high-intensity D and F model of traffic when you're moving. So that's my concern. You know, I mean, the thing about that intersection, it's a slow intersection. I agree with that, because the traffic is slow. It's not like a main throughway where, like, the one going by Viron, it's a higher speed. But at Mountain Road, the kicker is the people coming from 68 onto 70 going towards Cheshire. That's a high speed coming around the corner if traffic isn't queued right by the gas station. Coming at the end of the Mountain Road, traffic on Mountain Road slows down a little bit, but it's coming in from Route 70 going down the hill, going towards Mountain Road. That's where traffic is the higher speed. So that's my concern right there.
I wanted to let him answer the question, and then Mr. Bowman has a question.
Yeah, again, I understand your concern, but again, we're looking at the peak hour, and going even further, you're not going to have all the traffic going through that Mountain Road, West Main intersection. I mean, we have some trips that are going to be going south, so there is some.
The traffic's already there. It doesn't, any little bit over, we're already at a F, we're going off the scale. I mean, I don't know, go to an I and incomplete? I mean, that's where do you go? We're
Again,
past.
it's that situation is not as a result of not our development, though.
Realize that.
Yeah.
But like I said, but keeping into consideration of what we're looking at, it's still overloading the road and causing a hazard to the other people that are in that intersection. So that's my concern. That is my concern.
Mr. Bowman?
Having lived in Cheshire for a long time, more than half my life in West Cheshire, Mixville Road, Notch Road, from my personal experience, the traffic's increased dramatically over the last 72 years.
There's cars now.
I think that, I personally think there's a safety problem here. My concern is with emergency vehicles. I know they have lights and sirens, and I know people are supposed to pull over and let them pass, but when traffic is backed up in excess of a mile, they are still going to have to slow down, go into an oncoming lane, and hope that people pull over. I think that's a safety problem. I'd also like to address what the attorney for the applicant said, in that we shall and we will, and it's within the plan of conservation and development. So why are we wasting our time here? Why do the people come to a public hearing and have their input, and according to the applicant's attorney, their input means nothing? And our input means nothing, and we shall and we will. And I think that's wrong. I was elected by the public to serve them and to ask the tough questions, and I'm doing that. And I lived in that area over 40 years, and I know there's traffic problems there, and you have not convinced me with your statistics that this has changed. It's still an F, like Mr. Strollo said. It's not going to get better with this. The public has spoken. The public has reached out to us with their concerns. I believe this is a special permit. Otherwise, let's just fold up, let them have their subdivision. We don't have to act on it. That's, I hate to say it's the most ridiculous statement I ever heard.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, through you to Commissioner Bowman. With all due respect, Commissioner Bowman, I am reiterating what the regulation says. This is not my determination as to what the commission's purview is. It's in the zoning regulations. The same way that the commission is going to look at the special permit criteria, the same way it typically amends the zoning map for another site, this is what the regulations say. And if I insinuated that the commission's questions or comments don't matter, or the public's questions or comments don't matter, that's not the case, because we would not have answered any of them. And I believe you know by now, Commissioner Bowman, again, through you, Mr. Chairman, that I take answering the commission's questions very seriously. We spend time on these packages, we collect the additional data, we hire the best consultants to ensure that the commission has the best data in front of it. So again, and I'm saying this because it's important, the commission's input and questions, and the tough questions do matter, because we usually end up with a better proposal in the long run, which I appreciate, and I appreciate the commission's time. I sit on a planning and zoning commission, so I know how much time it takes. and I do that as a volunteer position as you all do. But again, this is what the regulation says. I'm not crafting this language. I put it up on the screen for that very reason, because when I reiterate what the regulation says, there's, again, respectfully pushback that I'm just, slamming down the hammer and telling the commission what to do. It's in the regulation. And then Commissioner Bowman, if I just may, you expressed a concern with emergency vehicles. General Statutes 14-283 provides that emergency vehicles can drive wherever and whenever they need to in case of an emergency. And also the statutes also provide that all vehicles need to yield or pull over to an emergency vehicle when it's in the process of answering an emergency. That, in and of itself, combined with the legal principle that the applicant's entitled to the presumption that we and members of the public will comply with the law, is sufficient here. So respectfully, there is no concern and there's no indication here that there would be a problem with emergency vehicles accessing the site. And if it were, we would have heard that from town staff. And we know that the fire chief, again, I'm not going to take words out of Mr. Glidden's mouth. This is what he told me. The fire chief okayed the proposed plan. Again, this is just at the zone change step. There will be further, more detailed review if we get to the special permit step, but I do want to put that on the record.
I think we're wasting our time. We're wasting our time here then.
And I just wanted to add that the existing signals do have emergency preemption equipment as well. So again, the right-of-way will be given to emergency vehicles as they approach that intersection or those intersections within the study area.
Commission members, any other questions? Ms. Downs, Mrs. Downs?
Yeah, you mentioned as of right uses, but we're looking at this proposal. I believe that's how we're supposed to do it. So I'm looking at this proposal, not what could be here. Secondly, in, I don't know what page it is, Hinckley-Allen memorandum, it says, and you stated this also, there is a difference between traffic congestion and traffic safety, and the proposed community will not create a safety issue. As someone who reads English, that leads me to believe that you're suggesting that it will cause congestion, but not a safety issue. You don't say that. Let me finish, okay? So, to me, that means you're admitting congestion, which is not a safety issue, but you're admitting it will cause congestion. I'm going to stop there. And my third point is that we have a letter from the chief of police, and I think that we should take that under consideration. And while he is not a traffic expert, he runs the traffic in the town. He's an expert on the town of Cheshire, and I trust that his comments are valid because he doesn't usually chime in on things to this extent. I've never actually seen a letter from him this long. And he is saying that it will exacerbate the situation. So as a commissioner, I have to take all of that into account, and I respectfully disagree with your conclusions.
Can I respond, just so that it's clear on the record? I did not say there is congestion. What I did say was, based on the trip generation of 27 trips and 29 trips during the AM and PM peak, during AM and PM peak, the volumes are minimal and are not significant to impact traffic operations. That's what I did say, for the record.
And I respect what you're saying.
Right, so, and I did say that the traffic from the site can be accommodated by the adjacent roadway system. I also did say that the side trips from the site is about less than 2% of the current traffic volumes within the area. So I did not say that the proposed development will bring congestion.
No, you didn't say it. It's written right here in so many words. In my opinion, you have your opinion as the traffic expert. I have my opinion as the English reader here. And it says there is a difference between traffic congestion and traffic safety. And we will not create a safety issue. But you're not saying we will not create congestion. It's a matter of semantics, but it's right here in the report. So you are the only expert in the room that is legally certified to be a traffic expert. I get it. Everyone in here is not. You are the only person that can legally tell us the real deal here. But as a person who lives in this town, I respect my police chief, and I think that we need to adhere to certain things besides one person's traffic expertise. And you are an expert. I give you
Right,
that.
and if you read the memo further, we do say later on in the memo that the proposed development would not significantly impact traffic operations. So it's not, the memo is not silent on congestion or traffic operations. It's in there in the memo. If-
Right. I have another point also, because you just mentioned 2%. 2% is 2%. So if you have a problem and you're adding 2% more problem, it's still a problem. So I just respectfully submitting my
Again,
opinion.
we use the word significant.
What's that?
We use the word significant. It's not, yes, I do agree 2% is 2%, but is it significant? No, it's not significant.
It's a matter of your opinion that it's not significant. I think 2% is significant, in my opinion.
In your professional opinion, do you feel that this is a congested intersection as it sits right now?
In my professional opinion, the proposed development would not,
In your professional opinion,
yes,
the existing intersection, is it a congested intersection or not?
in my professional opinion, you look at the overall level of service as level of service D, that is not a congested intersection. There are approaches that have queuing, as you pointed out, in the the northbound direction on Mountain Road, and as well as West Main Street. But you look at the overall intersection, it's a level of service D.
And A is the best, and
Yes.
E is the worst.
F is the worst.
F is the
correct.
worst.
Yes.
Mr. Bowman, then Mr. Mercado.
Have you made any provision for traffic calming through your property? I.e., someone coming up Mountain Road, wanting to take a right, getting tied up in the queuing, and just taking a right into your property, zipping around through the parking lot, and taking another right, thereby bypassing the light at Mountain Road?
Nothing. Commissioner Bowman, Mr. McAvoy will weigh in on that.
In terms of our preliminary site plans, no, Commissioner Bowman. However, if this does proceed to the next layer, I'm sure we could introduce traffic calming measures within the site, speed humps, raised crosswalks, things of that nature to detract from the possibility of that condition that you just mentioned.
So you have none at this time, and the possibility exists, just like your possibility of additional traffic, which there's going to be additional traffic, that someone zipping through there with your crosswalk are endangering your residents.
No, I believe what I'm trying to say is there are measures we can implement within the site to reduce the likelihood that someone tries to make a movement like that. But that does happen occasionally at properties that exist at corners of intersections. So there are things that we can implement at the final site plan as this progresses that would help to deter that possibility.
Mr. Mercado.
So I know, you mentioned you're the professional in using all this software and all this data that comes from other places. That data does not come from this town, mainly. I'm a professional in this town. 10 years I've been driving this route. I go eastbound in the middle of traffic and see all the traffic going westbound that's deadlocked. 4 times in the last year and a half, I've seen officers can't get by. People try to pull over, but you can't pull over because you're bumper to bumper. There's no place for them to go. And if that front car 1 mile up the road doesn't pull up enough that all the cars can then pull up, that officer's not getting through. I'm sure that officer's not going back to the police department and then putting in a report that, hey, boss, I'm sorry, it was hard to get through. I didn't get to that call and that person died, right? I'm here. I see it. I don't care what your little report and what your little computer says. It's horrible there. Cars can't get through, and it's going, like your words, exasperate it, make it worse. It's unsafe. Anything that goes in there is unsafe. And having all those people in there coming and going that live there, it's a bad place for this. Then you talk about, okay, that's the gateway to the town. That's a commercial property. Why don't you have the bottom floor commercial and some apartments above? You can have your loan come there, because I'm sure, and I'm probably sure Mr. Bowman can back it up, that commercial property has a lot more income than a housing. So putting commercial, then you got that mixed use is what our POCD says. If you look at the beginning of our POCD, not 10 pages in, we're supposed to proactively identify market available properties and keep our commercial. Go back up to, it's VI and read that. This does not fit into what our main goals in the town of Cheshire, our POCD is. So look at that. If you're there to make the money because you can't do it affordable, put the commercial, figure out that 2-to-1, whatever it is, you can put more affordable housing, have that commercial in there, and still be able to do this development. So I would look at that.
Mr. Kaderis.
Staff question. Is traffic congestion something that we consider under our regulations for affordable housing?
Well, your regs, it would be a safety concern, is what would trigger the traffic consideration as a reason to say it outweighs the need of affordable housing. So I guess the question is, is there a documentation of a known safety issue as a result of the congestion? That's what you'd have to, if you wanted to go down that road. No pun intended.
To follow up with the same question, interest in health, safety, or other matters which the commission may legally consider, what are the other matters? I mean, the health and safety is a big issue, of course, but what are the other issues within that paragraph?
Well, it would be infrastructure would be another area. Sewage, water, which you have, RWA says will serve, they have approval from WPCA, so that's not an issue. And then otherwise, like environmental, that's outside of your jurisdiction. That would be more of a determination for the Inland Wetlands Commission in the sense of the particular property. So really, it boils down to traffic and health and safety.
Mr. Chairman, I don't want to interrupt the commission, but I didn't want to go back and forth and keep interrupting various commissioners, but I do have a few comments, if I may,
Sure.
which I can address now in response to the various questions we just received, if I may? Okay.
Sure.
So Commissioner Strollo, you did indicate you presumed 150 vehicles would be coming out of this property with the 74 units. And we have representatives of the applicant here who have obviously taken a look at the anticipated tenancy and vehicle count and things like that. Keep in mind that these apartments are 3 studios and the remainder are splits between 1 and 2 bedrooms, roughly, not evenly split, but roughly between 1s and 2s. So anticipating that there's going to be 2 cars per all 74 units is just not accurate. That's not what the market is showing nowadays. And if you have further questions on that, Mr. Forlenza can certainly elaborate on that. Commissioner Downs, the as-of-right uses. So you are correct, Commissioner, you are looking at this application, certainly. The reason we brought up the as-of-right uses is because when we say as-of-right, we mean that they can be administratively approved, meaning not by the commission, but by staff, with just a site plan approval. So as long as you meet the bulk standards for that approval, you get your site plan approval for.
No, actually, the commission approves site plans.
They say administratively approved in the zoning regulations. So I apologize if I misinterpreted that.
The commission does, I don't have that authority. Staff can approve modifications to existing approved site plans, provided it meets, there's some parameters within there.
Oh, I apologize then. It does say administratively approved, which typically means by staff, but I apologize. So in any event, the site plan approval, as long as you meet, there's not discretion in that type of approval. As long as you meet the bulk standards and you meet the regulations, you get that site plan approval. And the reason we showed that was because those uses contribute either similar or far greater traffic than the proposed use here. It was just a comparison, not necessarily indicative of the traffic in this instance. And to clarify.
Comment on that?
I'm sorry, Commissioner?
Could I comment on?
Sure.
I was kind of using your words, that used before when you've come before us and said, look at this application only. So I'm kind of using your words, different situation where you have said, look at only this application.
Understood, Commissioner. Just additional information for the commission to consider. Your questioning of the phrasing in my memorandum of congestion versus safety, I was chuckling and thinking, wondering if you too are a lawyer, but I know you're not. So we are not saying that because there's a difference between congestion and safety and there's no safety concern. That was not an admission by omission that there is a congestion issue here. As you can see throughout the remainder of the reports, as Mr. Quasi detailed, the congestion or the traffic contributed to the roadway network from this development is minimal.
I'm going to comment, I knew you were a lawyer, I knew you wrote it, and so I knew that you wouldn't admit to any safety issues.
You're sitting next to another attorney, so.
So I know that because you wrote it. So, but I'm saying, even though it's semantic, to me, it's in there.
Well, I'm clear-
Legally or not,
Understood.
it's implied. Let me just say.
Understood, and
I'm inferring that it causes that, so.
Understood,
But I'm not a
Commissioner.
lawyer.
No,
Thank
no,
you.
and I appreciate that. For purposes of clarifying for the record, that's not what we intended. Commissioner Bowman, and again, I apologize in advance because I'm going to sound like a broken record, but your question about people cutting through the site, I just have to point out for the record that we, again, are entitled to that legal presumption, that handy legal presumption I keep pointing out, that people are going to comply with the law, and they're not going to illegally cut through a site when they are at an intersection.
Yeah, we're almost to the point, you guys are gonna have a chance to talk.
Yep.
I'm not gonna deny anybody on that.
I
right.
understand the legalities, you know what? I get all that, okay? Yes, the presumption is that people should pull over, but they don't. The presumption is that they shouldn't cut through, but they will. I just asked if you made any provisions for it. That's all,
Understood?
okay? I
Understood.
know what the law is, and you're up there to quote the law, and that's great. But you know what? We're up here to protect the public. So I'm gonna take what I think is gonna happen over what you say is gonna happen because of the law. Thank you.
Understood, and I'm doing my job, Commissioner, as you can understand. Okay. And then Commissioner Bricado, you did mention that and I'm just pointing out, you mentioned that the software doesn't matter. If it wasn't clear, we did traffic counts and we did a lot of boots on the ground observations and counts at the actual site. This wasn't just modeled after the software. As the data shows, the software, in fact, both when you're looking at the traffic counts at Quarry Village, the anticipated traffic counts at our site, they are conservative, meaning likely higher numbers than would actually be available. And then lastly, Commissioner Selmont, you asked about the and other matters. I concur with Mr. Glidden. It's typically insufficient infrastructure like sewer and water, which is not an issue here. So with that, Mr. Chairman, if the commission has no other questions, I defer
Can you
to-
answer the POCD question? I think it was Mercado brought it up.
Oh, I apologize. I missed
Where,
that one.
where we talk about you getting rid of the commercial property here and asking for residential. Yes, you're right that in the POCD, we're looking for more affordable and more different housing stock and choices for everyone here. But we specifically, a number of times, mentioned this site, and it was for mixed use. Never once did we say just a residential site in our POCD. So if we're supposed to listen to our POCD, like we are supposed to listen to our POCD because we sat up here and wrote it, we never envisioned this here. We envisioned a mixed use, and we've actually approved a mixed use here.
And if I remember right, we talked about beside you have the restaurant, on the other side you have a gas station. So you already have a commercial aspect. You don't want a spot zone of housing. I mean, that's, just like what's happening on Route 10 now, with the big building. That's like in the middle of commercial. So, I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like that in our piece, we didn't want that. We want a mixed use where you had something that blends, not, all residential.
Understood. So I can certainly weigh in on that, and I can just tell you the commission's not going to like my answer. I'll start with 44A. 44A, I'm not going to repeat it, sets forth the review standard. It then says in determining whether or not there's a public health and safety issue, I'm paraphrasing here, the commission shall consider the POCD an affordable housing need. So we went through all the ways in which we meet the POCD. And there are certainly things that we meet, and there are things that are not necessarily contemplated or directed by this application. You find it both ways. But on balance, our position is that we further the goals of the POCD, particularly when you're taking it in conjunction with the affordable housing plan. The other thing, I didn't want to interrupt you, Mr.
Nope,
Chairman.
I'm not going to interrupt you. Go ahead.
The other thing to keep in mind is Connecticut law is very clear that POCD compliance is not dispositive of an application, meaning you cannot deny an application simply for failing to comply with a provision in the POCD. It is a guidance document, it is a policy document, it's something that your regulations ask you to consider, but it is not a valid basis for denial.
Understood, but I just wanted you to know that in this, which I obviously read because we actually called it the Gateway too, so you
Yep,
didn't steal the name, but I mean, in our POCD, that's what we called this property, the Gateway property.
Yep.
And not once did it say, we just wanted to see residential in here. And I understand what you said before is absolutely correct, but I just wanted to let you know that there is more in our POCD that describes this property as a mixed use to value our limited commercial property that we have in this town.
understood.
Okay. Commission members, any other questions before we go to the public?
Mr. Chairman, staff just has one quick question for the applicant.
Sure.
Regarding the traffic subject. So the application, if you recall, at the last meeting, Dave Sullivan talked about some improvements that were going to be planned, widening a mountain road, and also working with DOT on timing of the signalization of the two intersections. The question is what happens if DOT does not allow the timing of those signals to be altered? Will that, well, obviously that's just going to basically continue the existing condition, but is your determination of no traffic impact based on implementing all these changes that Mr. Sullivan discussed at the last meeting?
May I, Mr. Chair?
Sure, of course.
Thank you. So through you to Mr. Glidden, there's a couple of things, and Mr. Quasey can certainly weigh in on this, but I'll hit on the procedural aspect, if I may. So our position, and Quasey can tell me if he disagrees, is that notwithstanding those improvements, the application as proposed does not present a traffic safety issue. However, by implementing those proposed improvements, which we discussed in May, it will further improve existing conditions. In terms of the implementation of those improvements, a Planning and Zoning Commission cannot condition a zone change petition. You're not allowed to impose approval conditions, but because this is a two-step process, so let's say hypothetically the commission were to approve this zone change petition, and we were to then go forward with the special permit and site plan application, where the commission would take a deeper look at things like traffic and site configuration, we would then revisit, of course, the proposed improvements, and if the commission felt it was necessary, it could then, at that time, impose an approval condition. Going one step further, if it was imposed as an approval condition and DOT did not approve it or approved a modification to those proposed improvements, we would then come back likely either to the commission or to staff, depending on how the commission crafts that approval condition for either a revised approval or some other type of review. So that's on the procedural side. I believe that answers Mr. Glidden's question, and I'll ask Mr. Brown to weigh in if he has anything else to say.
I think you said it all, Andrea. You're probably a traffic engineer. But yes, Andrea is right. Ultimately, if you want us to look at it during the next phase, we can definitely look at it. But ultimately, that responsibility lies with the Connecticut DOT because the signals are owned by the state, and obviously West Main is state-owned. We're going to have to go through what we call an encroachment permit process. To finally get approval from the DOT, and DOT may say, nope, we don't want it, and so then we'd have to come back.
I just have a question for
They
Mr.
haven't
Brown.
gotten it right yet.
Mr. Brown, on your traffic study, you said you're using a system from like the 70s? That
No.
It's been, but I'm just saying it's been updated. It has in this study now, and this is my concern as far as with all traffic, have they added an equation for impaired drivers because of marijuana being legal? And I'm serious, 100% serious, because there's a lot more accidents now because people are impaired. People are going down the road the wrong way, whatever. Even if they're stuck in traffic, they don't even know what the hell they're doing to pull over. So what I'm asking is there any, like, other thing coming in on the traffic studies for impaired drivers, a percentage for that, for traffic studies? Is that coming in?
Not that we've seen from the trip generation standpoint, because the IT manual is really for trip generation. But there's a big push, obviously, for advanced warning.
But an increase in accidents, I mean, there has been an increase in accidents in the last 2 years.
Yes, yes, yeah. I
Huge
wouldn't-
increase,
Yeah.
40%.
I don't want to go on the record for that. I don't
Yeah,
know.
what I'm just
Yes.
saying is that
Right.
it's up.
But yes, there's mitigation strategies that are being looked at. Like you talk about wrong way driving, et cetera. There's, warning infrastructure on ramps that DOT is implementing to sort of warn impaired drivers of wrong way driving and things like that. Simple fixes like rumble strips, those kind
Yeah,
of things.
that's what I want, like, is that something that's on the horizon for?
It is, and some of them are being implemented, and DOT is really making a big push for that. One of the things that we are doing as a company is we're working with the Connecticut DOT, looking at how we're going to improve local road safety throughout the state and also on state roads, looking at some of these strategies.
Well, that's
So-
adding to
so
Mr.
it
Mr.
is-
Bowman's, because, like, when you have an impaired driver and they go through a site that isn't correctly, signed or whatever, I mean, they don't even care, they're just gonna go through it anyway, and, I mean, that's what happens. But I think that's what Mr. Bowman talked about, going around, cutting through.
Listen, I don't want to cut you off, but I do want to
Okay.
get to the people.
I
that
just wanted to add that.
They've been talking a long time, we've been talking a long time, and if you don't mind, if everyone's all set,
Yep.
I gotta ask, are you all set with your, you can have the right at the end to come back and rebut everything?
You read my mind, Mr. Chairman.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone from the public? I'm sure there'll be many. Just come over here. If you want to form a line, that would be great. I do ask this all the time. If we've already heard something, please don't, harp on it. I don't want to hear the same thing from every single person. I'd like to hear new stuff only, and that way I won't have to enact anything like cutting anyone off at 3 minutes or 4 minutes, and we can get through tonight. So, name and address for the record.
Dave Rochford, 805 West Main Street. I've tried to add something tonight this is not my forte. I brought a thumb drive of this intersection so you can see what I see.
Dave, I need you to get right to the microphone. You can pick it up if you want, but we got to be able to pick you up
I'm
on
going
that.
to give this thumb drive to Mr. Glidden. Mr. Glidden, here's a list of what's on it, and I'm going to try and keep it very brief still. Again, this is not my forte, so it's pretty rough. And I want you to have a snapshot of really how dangerous this is already. Let's see if this is going to come up. I hope it does. I'll also tell you that I've addressed some of this. You'll hear me speaking in them. I had to go out and do it today, to my embarrassment. I have volumes of video here. I was surprised how often I curse when I see people driving like yo-yos. So there's an awful lot of it that's not in there. But I think this is a snapshot, and I think it's beneficial that I had to go out last minute today.
It hasn't come up yet. It's coming. It's trying.
So let's see what we get here.
Exercise patience.
Seen this show before?
I've seen it once, update.
Okay. And if we get this pulled up, yeah, there's some areas, if you want to, in the name of time, advance it, you can, but okay. So let's just start from the beginning, real quick. I think there was I may have missed it, but I thought there was some discussion that this is an area that might not see that many accidents. This first one, quickly, is May 3rd, This is an accident at that intersection. It was significant. Multiple police officers, fire engines. When I hear about boots on the ground, I didn't hear anything about the recent accidents. I think basically just since this application was submitted. You can bounce past this if you want. Basically, it's identifying for the record, and then just so it's not something that you think I came up with, the next slide, which you can go by quickly, is the accompanying police report coming to that. Oh, we bounced past that. Let's see if we can go back to video 2. Okay, so you can, that one's just going to support the accident. That's the police report to that call. Again, I'm going to try and give everybody a chance here, but that just documents that what I'm showing you is not something fabricated. That's the first accident. It was a mess. I should bring to your attention, too, that when I went to the police department to get those confirmations, they said, do you have the dates that these accidents happen? The very input from the records department was, we get calls there all the time. So fortunately, I had those dates. This one here, this is the second accident, and this is just in the past 2 months. So when I hear that there's, not a lot going on there, it's just recently that, this is what I see, by the way. I'm not home 24/7 to document this stuff. You can see some of the trucks up on the property are proposing to maybe consider a zone text change. And that was the police report after it. You can bounce past that. If you want, it just confirms that, that accident as well. Now, as I said just a moment ago, I'm embarrassed that I have much of this, and I couldn't submit it without looking like a fool or making an ass of myself with my language. The next 4, I ran out just this morning, and I said, well, I can keep my cursing to a, curtailed, knowing I'm showing this evening. The next 4 are just today. Every one of these, if you want to turn the volume up, I kind of gave a description of what's going on. This is every morning. I went back and forth 4 times today. Every time I went by and filmed it, you had cars passing me on the right, multiple cars passing me on the right, and this is where we're saying it's going to be better by just eliminating the left-hand turn in. You're still going to have, in my estimation, I'm not a traffic expert, but the video kind of tells the story. I don't need to be an expert. This is real life. This is this morning. This is another one. I went by 4 times. This took no time at all. This is lap 3 for me, and here they go. You know darn well the white one is going to drag race the other one off the right. And away they go on the right, and the red one's going to do the same. That's 3 in a row. That's 3 in a row. You've also, before that, one of the earlier videos, or it may follow, I've got 4 cars lined up in front of me. 3 of them drag race down there. And I know that we talk about signage and having people do the right thing. They're not doing the right thing now. I don't see how changing it is going to make this any better. What we're going to have is, as this comes and congests inward, as people exit just to go right, it's my belief you're going to have more ass enders than you've ever seen in this area. And when I went to records today to confirm this, again, I was surprised that one of these accidents was reported as just a call-in. It wasn't the fact that you had wreckers out there and everything else. We don't know without going out there. If you're out there, you could do a field trip out there, and you don't have to be out there 30 minutes to see this happen multiple times. It's an absolute disaster. It's dangerous today. I'm telling you, I don't care if you eliminate one way of turning into it, you're gonna have more accidents here. I also don't mean to be a wise guy. I keep on hearing about this 2%. If those increased accidents, which I believe will certainly be more than 2%, if your child dies, that's a big number. These accidents are going to be increased. And I think, okay, yeah, this is coming down 68 in the morning.
68 trying to get down to the light at
I'm not on.
7:55. Haven't even made it around the corner, have sat through 1.5 lights already, going on 2. Can't even see the light yet.
So now I'm coming down Route 68. Keep in mind, when you get to the bottom of 68 and you're making a right-hand turn, and this is pretty lengthy getting there. It takes a couple more runs through the light. Once you turn right, you've got a hard time trying to get over to the left. This was just cute, I thought, in that I've even got school buses passing me on the right. And by the way, that's, I believe, where you're proposing moving in. And I will also say for the record, before someone wants to correct me, I understand when it comes to safety, having to tape record this is not the safest thing in the world to do. So it's just for your benefit, not a regular action on my part. So I think what you need to understand is everybody comes up here with their numbers and talks about, well, 2% this, or it's not that, it's not that. If you're there, real life, it's all that already. It is dangerous. It will be more dangerous. And I don't see you changing the state road, so when you come off of 68, they're all gonna do that drag race thing. It's inevitable. It happens, they're forced to do it, I guess, and we're not changing the state road to do this. The traffic will be increased. I'm not gonna put on a strong rebuttal in terms of your numbers. This is what you do for a living. I just find it hard to believe too, even if we said it's not 150, let's say it's 100 cars. I think those people getting out of there, turning right in the morning, cannot avoid these cars passing them. I don't care how many times we say follow the rules. People don't follow the rules. The rules are already in place here. They're breaking the law every day to get by. Anything we're gonna do here is gonna make it worse. And that's just a point of fact. And you can go out there. You're looking at it, and I think it's important to see it with your eyes, and instead of hearing numbers saying it's all gonna be all right. It's not all right now. It's a mess. It's a danger. And the fact of the matter is, I apologize, I also had, in terms of safety vehicles getting through, I had many, many videos showing every day I live right in this area. Traffic backed up to Pop's Pizza and sometimes up to Warren Street. I don't see how emergency vehicles, when we compound it, we compound the likelihood of accidents, that they're gonna get through there. It's just getting uglier and uglier. I didn't add those to it, simply again because the language wasn't too pretty. Again, this is a dangerous, dangerous intersection. Today, if you approve this zone text change that puts forth the things we're talking about, I'm not hanging on anyone's head, but we've all got to own the additional accidents that are going to come, the additional injuries that are going to come, and possible loss of life. I don't know what we do about telling the police department, the fire department, and the ambulances, well, you know, we're going to add a little affordable housing. Sorry you couldn't get to that emergency. So I'm dead against it based on the facts. And that's all I have to offer you. If you've got any questions about what I offered you tonight, that's what I've got. You can keep the thumb drive. It's a little rough. If this is going to be a process that's going to continue, I will come back and show you what we deal with all the way up to Pop's Pizza and beyond every day thereafter. And we'll keep the language nice and clean so you can all view it. Thank you for your time, and I certainly hope you consider how ugly this is and that we're only going to make it more dangerous. Appreciate it.
My name is Scott Smith. I live at 17 Linwood Drive Extension. Also, I want to start off with, last time I came here, I sat through it, even though it was canceled at the last second, but I still came and sat through it, and I understand that we've been looking for a traffic study, and it hasn't been done. I hope the town council reviews this presentation and the discussions here today on how badly that's needed. It's sad that it has come to this. One of the first things I want to address is, I heard at the beginning, if we deny here because of safety, then an increase of safety, that we would have to deny anything else, no matter how much safety or how little safety it would. I respectfully disagree. If I'm in a sinking boat, I'd feel much safer with 5 pinholes than a big 6-inch gash in the side of the boat. That's just how I feel as far as safety goes. When it comes to the traffic, there was a big discussion over that. I think there was some wording that was being done very carefully of that an increase in congestion does not necessarily mean an increase in, or a decrease in safety, or a decrease in safety does not necessarily mean that there's an increase in congestion. However, I believe that that also allows for an increase in congestion can lead to a decrease in safety. So even though they are excluded, I think that should also be on the record that they can correlate as well. Also, we heard some numbers thrown around, 2% of this and a 2% increase. I'm not a certified engineer. I do have an engineering degree. And I know that when you have restricted compressible flow, which I believe traffic semi follows the principles of, A 2% increase in volume does not relate to a 2% increase in backup. You have the compounding fact of it. The equations are very detailed and lengthy, but that 2% sounds so small. But when you look at whenever you restrict the flow that much, with nowhere to go, nowhere for trucks to pull over, cars to pull over, to allow vehicles to come through, that 2% is a really big number. The last thing that I want to address is the word significant that was also used many, many times. Presentation expert Ed Tufte, who Cheshire resident, did an analysis of the shuttle disaster and some of the causes of it. And they found that the presentation the engineers used to say that it was safe to bring the shuttle back to Earth used the word significant many times in referring to there was not significant damage, there was not a significant risk to safety. And I'm not trying to compare the shuttle disaster to that. I'm trying to prepare engineers, again, I count myself as one, engineers using the phrase significant. That word has a lot of different meanings, and I think that it should be very carefully interpreted what significant or not significant really means. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Ron Corcoran, 804 West Main. Just want to reiterate what Dave said earlier. I think we already have a safety problem with the traffic. I've sent forwarded videos to the police department of emergency vehicles having to go down the wrong side of the street because the westbound lane is completely locked up with traffic. So in order to go west, they had to use the eastbound lane with the 2 EMTs flying down the wrong side of the road. So if someone was pulling out of their apartment, they'd be butting heads with the emergency vehicles going the other way. So that would not be good. And we also have, in addition to emergency vehicles, you have patients that, drivers who lost their patients waiting in traffic, and they decide to do this, go down the wrong side of the road because they could see all the way down to the intersection, and they just fly down there. And I picked it up on my doorbell camera, shared it with the police for their information. But I think the traffic studies are very underestimated. It seems that I heard the dates that these were done were like on Thanksgiving or a holiday. To count traffic on a holiday and call that your weekday number doesn't sound appropriate to me because people don't go to work on Thanksgiving Day, or President's Day. So those dates that were used were holidays. So I don't know if that would be accurate that 75 units and you only have 50 cars coming and going. Doesn't sound realistic to me. I see people coming and going all day long from residences on Linwood Drive. And Linwood Drive, by the way, is already experiencing the cut-through issues with people trying to pick up a few car lengths by traveling westbound in the evening, and they come through our neighborhood like gangbusters because they're trying to pick up a few car lengths. That's not good. And adding to this traffic is just going to make it worse. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Kelly Krasny. I live at 1020 Waterbury Road, so a little bit farther down than near the intersection. However, from sitting in these meetings, it does sound that with a limited amount of commercial property or area that we have zoned, it would be a disservice to our town that if we were to give that up in lieu of affordable housing. Also, from what it sounds like, we're already at an F, which sounds pretty bad, and 2% is going to be more sizable than 2% is what I think. 2% might sound like a little bit, but in reality, I think it's going to be much more than that. There is conversation of congestion versus safety. However, congestion does equal safety, and I think those do go hand in hand. I know that this is supposed to be a mixture of some housing and also some affordable housing. Based on some of the costs of these rentals, I mean, they're really not truly that affordable in my opinion. And I think that for some of these one-bedrooms, you will absolutely see at least 2 cars for some of these affordable housing, just because they're not going to be able to, you'll need 2 people to pay for the rent there. Since I do live on that road, we have seen numerous accidents. My daughter is currently scared to stand out and wait for the bus, and that she's been scared for years, and I don't see this being any better. And sometimes, depending on the time of day, it takes me about sometimes 3 minutes just to get out of my driveway, and that's just now, and that is kind of a problem. And as far as people breaking the law or not listening to the law or finding cut-throughs because of being angry, road rage, or whatever, they will 100% use the shoulder, use the middle, use whatever the cut-through is, and some of these ancillary roads like Linwood or like Peck, and they're going to go pretty fast because they're going to be really tired of sitting in traffic. So I do see that happening. And with the location of where everything is now, I'm not sure that this area will even make it through traffic-wise or safety-wise, just a construction phase, let alone when there's actually cars involved. And then just as a little sidebar, I know that Chris, last night, I know you were pretty passionate about the violation of the rooster. Just to let you know that the rooster is in violation, is getting rehomed tonight, okay, or not tonight, this week. And he does identify as a he, him, and not as a hen, as you are saying online. So, okay, that's all I got. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Lisette, 499 Mountain Road. My husband and I, we have been living in Cheshire for more than 12 years. We used to live in a little bit beyond the Notch store, towards Waterbury. We moved to Mountain Road, and my husband works in Waterbury. I work in Hartford. I do my grocery shopping in Stop and Shop. I go to Marshall's. I go to the swimming pool. So what I'm trying to say is that I use, obviously Mountain Road, and, very often, every day. So I know how it is. And the experts mentioned that they use whatever program and that he has a lot of experience. But my experience is that I live there every day. I go somewhere, either to buy something or to work, and we have a very, serious problem in Mountain Road. So for these people to say that they don't see any problems, that they use whatever program to do this and that, really makes me angry, because they just care about whatever they want to build. They don't care about our town and our lives, because these people are going to affect our lives for the people that we already live there. They are here just to make money. They don't care about Cheshire like we care. So, thank you.
Hi, my name is Patty Esposito. I'm a 40-year resident of Wildwood Drive in Cheshire, and I agree with everything that's been said before me. I do have an additional concern. Late in the afternoon, in our yard, my husband and I, if we go outside, we can smell exhaust from all the cars and the trucks that are backed up on West Main Street. I can only imagine with more traffic that will just get worse. So it may be, the applicants feel that it's not a significant increase in traffic, but to those of us who live in that area, yeah, it is, because it affects us in a lot of different ways. So I'm asking that we not have to turn that into a huge building full of more people. Thank you.
My name is Mary Corsati. I live at 821 Ives Row, and I have a few questions. Number one is, they mentioned the study and that the program, I'm sorry, I'm not a tech person, that dated from the 70s, and I wondered if that is updated to include the fact that we have more cars per family. The cars go faster, and for the most part, they're much bigger than they used to be. Another question is the gasoline spill from the gas station or the loss of gasoline from the gas station at the corner of 68, which they still monitor those wells. I was told they didn't, but there was a man monitoring the well just 3 weeks ago looking for contaminants, and has that been taken into consideration? Another question is, you know, it felt as if they were saying that if we don't do this, that land will never be used. There are lots of other ways to build. We don't need a unit that houses 70-something people, or, I'm sorry, 70 apartments. And then the last one is, and now I'm gonna have a hard time remembering what the last one was, but it just seems to me that we're rushing into something that we've been reassured. Oh, I know what the last one was. One of the questions that was asked multiple times at the May meeting was why the company has never hired a third party to do their traffic studies. And that's all. Thank you very much.
Good evening. My name is Jocelyn Barcheski, 202 Mixville Road. I just had a couple of comments, and I do apologize, a little nervous. But in any event, I think the 44A that she was referring to, the attorney was referring to with regards to shall, right? Shall approve, shall this, shall that, not must, right? So there is still an open door, because if it's stating that if it poses a public health or safety issue, then you can reconsider it. So I strongly ask that you do reconsider that in light of the fact that there's so many issues with regards to traffic, primarily when I leave from Mixville to go to work. Also, parking spaces. You mentioned 2 per tenant. Are there any parking spaces for company, for guests?
The question is, the parking spaces that they have meet the regulations, so that really doesn't.
Oh, it doesn't?
Doesn't-
Okay.
doesn't,
Because I know with other developments, I work outside of New Haven with regards to that, and customarily we're required to have guest spaces. In
The
addition
size of the building, the number of units, correct me if I'm wrong, determines how many parking spaces they would need for that development. And they have more than enough, or else they would not be able to bring the development in to us.
Only because there's no off-street parking there, so I was a little concerned with regards to that as well. And I take exception with regards to them stating that it's affordable housing when it's only utilizing 25%. Hiding under the guise with regards to affordable housing, that is just something that for the public to see, right? That if in fact you do deny this, then, oh, you know, Big Bag Cheshire denied this affordable housing, right?
Well,
But
that
that's
happens
in
to be,
fact
our-
not the
that
case.
happens to be our regulations, so
Yeah.
that's.
But, and then also with regards to, it's unfair to say that if the commission denies the petition, it closes the door for future development. That is clearly not the case, because I'm sure that there's other considerations with regards to smaller developments and true mixed-use development, so that it adheres to the POCD. So that's all I need to say. Thank you.
Hi, Rob. Melissa Grenenskina, 86 Quarry Village. Again, sort of reiterating what everyone else has said, but we all live on different streets. We come out of Quarry Village every day. We have 96 unit owners, and I will say, as I know you're saying you have 2 parking spaces per unit. More than half of our residents have 2 cars. Some of them have 3 or 4. Are you accounting, again, you're saying that you have 2% coming out. I do agree that someone pointed out the dates are wrong, possibly looking at, an off day, a holiday. This week, if you were to do traffic study, Mountain Road was great, West Main was great, but not tomorrow, not the next day. Coming out of Quarry Village, you can go right and you have to go very quickly. If you're trying to go left, are you gonna be able to are you gonna talk to DOT and get a left turn signal out of Mountain Road? Because there's not a left turn signal right now out of Mountain Road. When we come out of Quarry Village, it is the people across from you don't realize that you're going straight and they're making a left. They're heading towards Waterbury. So we actually have to go very quickly across the road because you do not have a left turn signal. So that would have to be something that DOT would need to add. I don't think that they're going to allow the road to be extended or widened, or Liz Lenahan would have already done it because she already got our traffic signal improved. And there's still been 3 accidents within the last 3 weeks of the first meeting. One before that and 2 right after. Dave has 1 on video, and I texted someone else right when we were pulling out of the complex that there was 1 there in that exact area. Coming home from work, coming down past the notch, making a right onto Mountain Road. It is no lie that every day I make a right, I want to turn, I'm heading towards your new complex, I want to be able to make a left into Quarry Village. I go very quickly, I try to time it, you pray that you're gonna hit the light at the right time. People are flying by you, I'm trying to make a left-hand turn, and what's happening is, so now it's great that it's not here anymore, you propose that you're gonna have no left turn in, but at the same time, those people who are now not gonna be able to turn into the complex, who can only now enter on Mountain Road, are going to be coming at me. We're literally looking at each other, and they're gonna be there, they're trying to cross over, we're trying to cross over. The whole congested area, I know what you do, and I'm a realtor, I get it, we have a housing crisis, but it is congested, it is a safety issue. My husband and I were driving the other day, trying to turn left, and somebody turned your turn lane that you want to use to turn into Mountain Road and made it their own 3-lane highway to get by us, to go by the gas station, and then kept going. So it's an area that there's a sign, there's a yield, there's a stop sign, there's a light. It doesn't work. And we live there every day, and I will have to say is we have 96 people coming in and out that all have 2 to 3 cars per unit. So I guarantee you're gonna have more than 1 car. You're gonna have 2 cars, and it is already an area. Mountain Road backs up for miles. So those people who are gonna try to turn right to hit the light, how are they ever gonna make the right onto the light and then make left? We're never gonna cross, I don't understand how it's all gonna happen. Again, your study, I beg to differ. I've lived here since I was 5 years old and I'm 55. It's a bad area. So thank you.
Thank you.
Karen Buell, owned here for about 45 years. Marty Galvin was a person who had a strip mall there originally, and my family rented from him, so I know all about the property. The property's backed up to wetlands. We need to keep it commercial. We really do, because there's too much traffic, and every time I try to go from Ives Row onto Mountain, I wait about 15 minutes because there's that much traffic cutting into Mountain Road. You take a right on Mountain Road to go to Bellagio's or something, you better watch out you don't get sideswiped. Ridiculous what you're trying to do. Keep it the way it was. It was the best. And I'm a realtor, so I know.
My name is Linda Smith. I live at 17 Linwood Drive Extension. My concern is, I work at Doolittle School, and so even the traffic during the daytime, when school buses are dropping students off, the road not being wide enough, cars cannot see that the bus has stopped, and students are still getting off the bus. Cars are still passing stopped school buses. So with the width of the road, coming home from Doolittle on Mountain Road, for whatever reason, vehicles turning off of West Main Street onto Mountain Road, for whatever reason, have accidents driving into mailboxes and going down people's front driveways, like into their property, and hitting trees. There's accidents on not only West Main Street, but also on Mountain Road in this particular area. I see it from both directions because I go to school in both ways. So it's very concerning. The safety issue is, because the road is so wide and then narrows, it is a big concern. And there is a lot of people get so frustrated with the backup of the cars that cut through Linwood Drive Extension, down Jarvis Road. It all bottlenecks right where you want to build it, and I'm absolutely for affordable housing. I encourage it, I support it. This area is a very difficult place. And so I just want to go on the record as saying, very concerned about the children's safety in the area, and my children who are driving, anybody getting new licenses in this area, and our community. So that was my concern. So thank you for your time.
My name is John Connell. I live at 136 Southwick Court. I'm going to be a different speaker than anybody who's spoken before me. I do not care whether you vote yes or no for this particular project. I've lived in 6 different cities and towns in 3 different states, Indiana, Texas, and Connecticut. I've lived here in Cheshire for 6 years. I had no idea what Cheshire was like when I moved here. It just happened to have a condo that I needed at the time, and it was at the right price, and it was the right size. When I've experienced in other communities around the country, whenever there is ever talk of affordable housing, there's always an argument that says it's going to increase traffic. Any development we put in is going to increase traffic. I mean, whether it's 1%, 0.5%, or no percent, 0.02%. So traffic always is the issue. And it's then the other argument is, I haven't heard that here, but maybe it's been made before, but it's going to increase the students in our schools. And of course, all of that is going to cost more money because it's going to increase taxes. Nobody wants taxes to go up. But yet some of the same folks, and I'm not saying here because I haven't lived here long enough. I know I've heard everything from, I don't know, your whole life, 70s and so forth to so forth. I've been here 6 years. But some of the same folks that I've heard complain around the country of increased traffic, increased students, increased taxes and so forth are the same people that they want affordable housing. Because they talk about, especially in Connecticut, oh, it's so expensive here. Oh, it's so high to taxes to live here. And housing's so expensive. We need more affordable housing. So if it's not this project, do what you can to get developers to come in here and tell them where are the properties. I don't know what the properties are. But let's stop the arguments about traffic and safety, and not saying that in this case, I don't know enough. These people certainly feel very passionately about traffic in that area. I've driven through that area, but I don't live in that area. But we need more affordable housing. I think from what I've read, the statistics in Cheshire, we're at the low end of the percent of affordable housing in the state. And we can't, and hiring businesses oftentimes will say, we can't hire people because they can't afford to live here. So that's all my message, is just work for finding more affordable housing in our community.
And I'd like to say we do. I mean, this commission has approved a ton of affordable housing. I can't, do you know the numbers off the top of your head in the last, well, they're not all affordable. I mean, there's 700 apartments that have been approved in the last 2-3 years, but
It's roughly 100 units.
100 units of affordable have been approved by this commission that's sitting here now. So we are not against affordable housing at all.
I didn't say this specific commission. I just said,
The Planning and Zoning Commission that would get that. I don't want to argue with you. I'm just going to say we are not opposed to, any one of us up here are not opposed to affordable housing in this town.
how much, if I can ask you, of those 100 units are actually been built yet?
They're in the process of, you know the answer?
So 112, which 25% over on Hazel Drive, that has been completed. You have East Mitchell, what is it, the total there is 56. 25% of that is affordable, and that's under construction. The first building got a CO. And I know that they are coming in with another request for certificate of occupancy, and there are some deed restricted units because there's been someone that knows an individual that's been approved for one of those apartments. On the corner of Realty Drive, everyone sees that. That is being framed as we speak. The 5-story building, Vessel which that's 70, and that's 30% is deed restricted. The
That's all right.
project.
I don't want to get too far.
Yeah.
We're working on
I
it.
mean, you're on the right track. My
Thank you.
plea is keep pushing and keep getting more. That's all. Thank you very much.
Hello, my name's Christina Kolos. I live at 697 West Main, and I've lived in Cheshire for about 15 years. I am not in favor of the zone change, and I want to just reiterate that I think safety is an issue. Added congestion, I think, is an issue. I know sometimes it could take me quite some time to be able to take a left out of my driveway in the morning when I go to work. But I just want to remind folks that, well, my recollection of the first meeting was that they were only offering 25% affordable housing units for 40 years. And I think if they were really interested in helping us, people who live in Cheshire, have more affordable housing, they would offer that in perpetuity. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public wishing to speak? Okay, Mr. Ricardo, did you want to say something?
For the folks at Cheshire, I don't know if you guys remember in the last public hearing, but the developers did talk about reducing traffic by having people go through secondary and tertiary roads. I know a couple of you brought that up, that they go through Linwood and whatnot, but that's part of their plan. They're hoping some of the traffic goes onto other streets, which is gonna be dangerous over in those streets now. Wherever those kids are playing, they're not used to having heavy traffic. So, safety, it not only does it affect that local area, it's gonna affect the areas where the people are gonna cut through to get around this.
Okay, any other commission members? No? Mrs. Gomes, would you like to take the?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, Andre Gomes, counsel for the applicant. So I'm just going to run and hit on some of the comments that were made by members of the public. I'm not going to address everything because really a number of the comments regarding peak trips, et cetera, have been addressed. I'm also going to ask Mr. Brown to come up and specifically speak on some of the traffic data. First, with respect to Mr. Rochford's video, and I absolutely do not say this tongue in cheek, but we've been hearing a lot about traffic congestion in this area, yet each of those videos, traffic seemed to be moving quite well. So I do want to just highlight that for the record. The crash data, there is crash data from January 1st, 2024 through May 31st, 2024 that we obtained, I believe, from the police department, and that's at, I believe, page 6 of our July 2nd memo. So the accidents that Mr. Rochford had highlighted were presumably captured by the police, since police was there, and reported to us when we saw that information, but Mr. Brown will touch on that. There was a question about the accuracy of the traffic counts and if they were taken during a holiday. I'll just note they were taken November 1st, not on Thanksgiving, and on February 21st as well. There was a question about environmental for the site. Regarding the release at the gas station. So initial investigations of the site indicated that there is potential contamination of groundwater from the gas station. While we still have some investigation to do, and this will certainly be flushed out, no pun intended, during the special permit application process, our LEP, or licensed environmental professional, indicates that the levels are such that they can be addressed without concerns and in accordance with state standards. So, but that is, again, something that would be flushed out during the special permit stage. There was a suggestion about a traffic peer review. It's an interesting comment only because there's been commentary that because if we hire the consultant is not independent, yet there's a push for us to hire another consultant, so presumably by extension there would be pushback that consultant would also not be independent. That being said, if the commission ultimately did desire a peer review, that can be done during the special permit stage. Again, this is just the zone change petition. We're looking at public health and safety, and the more nitty-gritty details, if you will, can be addressed during special permit, including additional details on traffic if needed. And And then the last thing I want to know, actually two things. There was a question about school buses and vehicles passing stopped school buses, not being able to see that they are stopped and letting children off. Again, as we pointed out, and this was a question that Commissioner Strollo asked during the May meeting, we're going to work with the Board of Ed so that the Board of Ed can determine where the school buses should stop. The site has been designed to allow a school bus to circulate completely within our site. So if the Board of Ed determines that that's the safer proposition, that can be done, and that's not a concern here. And then lastly, Commissioner Brocado, you made a comment about our traffic engineer relying on cut-throughs, and I am looking at my team, and we do not recall that being said during the May 29th meeting. There wasn't anything in the report, and I'm looking at Commissioner Brown, sorry, I promoted you, Kwesi, I'm sorry. I'm looking at Mr. Brown on that, and I'm not seeing anything in the report, so I just wanted to, and I'll ask Mr. Brown to.
I'll find it. Yes, he did, and if you can get me the tapes, I'll pull it out.
No, there's no need, Commissioner, I can certainly say that, but I'll ask Mr. Brown to come up and touch base on a couple other traffic issues, including the crash data and the merge lane that we saw in the videos. Thank you.
Question, something just for the audience, I love that everybody's coming here, because something I learned about that gas leak I didn't know about, or I didn't know about that gas leak. On that gas leak, you said that you talked to them and there is residual there, but they can do something to stop that. Can you just expand on that a little bit? I might have heard it wrong.
No, there was no discussion on my part with the neighboring property owners. We were obviously just looking at our site. Some initial investigations indicate there may be some contamination in the groundwater, but again, the levels are such that they can be addressed without concern.
How's that addressed? I mean, if it continues to leak over something deep, is there a way to stop it? I know you can, if there's something there, you can remediate it, but how do you know that it's not going to continue, and how do you keep it from coming over if it is?
So I'm obviously not an LEP, and I would leave that to the professionals. Again, something that we could address during the special permit stage, but there's a number of ways you can address it. There's a certain mitigation method. You could literally clean the soil, and put up certain measures to prevent the communication of the contamination coming over. I don't know specifics as to what they proposed for the site, but again, it was a preliminary analysis. The LEP said that there were no concerns, and really this is just something that's going to be addressed during special permit.
Again, for the record, Kwesi Brown with SLR. Just to address some comments that we got from the public. So the video, particularly with the merge down, again, I'm familiar with that merge. I drive through that area quite a bit myself. Obviously work in town. I go to the Notch to grab a sandwich from time to time. I've met a few from the public at the Notch store. So it's really something that is a state facility, and that's something that could be brought up with the state. But I have to say that it's something that is not uncommon. It happens in other parts of the state. I do understand that it's a merge down, and drivers have to be more cognizant. There is signage that warns motorists that it's a merge down. But again, it's an enforcement issue, and drivers really taking it upon themselves to obey the law and take their time as they go through the merge. In terms of the crashes, what we used for the crash data is the Yukon Crash Data Repository. I'm sure you've all heard about it. It's the repository that was used in the state of Connecticut, and it gets all the data from the various police departments. When we collected the crash data, the data was through May 31 of this year. It could be that after that there's been a crash or two, but again, looking at the overall data, and in response to comments that we received from the last public hearing, we broke down the data from 2019 to 2024, and I'm looking at the data for the entire year of 2020. Actually, let me go back to 2019. For the intersection of West Main and Mountain Road, total of 6 crashes. You go to 2020, Mountain Road, Quarry Road, 4 crashes. You go to year 2021, there was 1 crash. 2022, again, this is data that is obtained from various police departments for the entire state. It's a credible repository. 2022, there were no crashes at that intersection. 2023, there was 1 crash. And then 2024 through May 31, at Mountain Road and Quarry Village Road, there were 2 crashes. Again, it could be from the video that there's been additional crashes, but the information, that most up-to-date data that we have from the Yukon Crash Data Repository is what we presented. And it could be that the additional crashes that the gentleman saw ultimately would make it into that database. So I just wanted to touch on that. There was a comment about significant and what it means. Now, we are saying there's no significant impact looking at the level of service degradation. In all the movements that we looked at, there was no degradation of level of service. So there wasn't one time where the level of service moved from A to B or C to D, et cetera. And so that's what we mean by I feel that there's no significant level of service degradation or significant impact. So I just wanted to address that. Ms. Gomes already talked about when we conducted the traffic counts. It was not on a holiday. It was November 1st, 2023, and February 21st, 2024. So it wasn't a holiday. The trip generation, some members of the public were referring to the data being from 1970. That was not what I was trying to portray. I was trying to make the point that it's data that's been around, or they started publishing data since 1976. It doesn't mean that the data is from 1976. We are currently on the 11th edition of this manual, and the last update to the manual was in 2021. So I just wanted to make that record. And then finally, again, this comparison with the Quarry Village development, someone said there's 3 to 4 cars. You just want to bear in mind the Quarry Village development is 2 to 3 units. What we are proposing is 1 to 2 units. And again, even if some people say it's going to be 2 cars, we are looking at the peak hour and how many trips are being generated within the morning and afternoon peak hour. People have different commuting patterns in terms of when they leave for work, et cetera. And what we are saying is, based on the peak hour that we analyzed, the trip generation is what we are relying on from the IT trip generation manual, and which, in our experience and in my experience, is very reliable. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Bowen.
Do you feel, excuse me, sir, I have a question for you. Where your right in and right out onto West Main Street is also where you go from 2 lanes from Mountain Road to 1 lane. So now you're gonna, do you feel that there is a danger of people that are continuing straight past Mountain Road are now going to encounter people turning into your subdivision? Do you feel that that will create a hazard?
I guess I'm not clear. You're saying that folks going eastbound from the merge down?
No. From Mountain Road.
Mountain Road, okay.
Towards the restaurant.
Okay.
Is 2 lanes.
Yes.
It's a continuation from Prospect Road 68.
Yep.
Past Mountain Road, you can take the right onto Mountain Road, or you can continue in a 2-lane configuration that then merges into 1 lane. But that merge is right where your right in and right out is. And do you feel that that will create a hazard? Or has the potential to create a hazard?
We can look at the location of that. I understand with the merge down. Again, it's not. We can always refine the location of the right and right out. Maybe we have to look at it in terms of where the exact merge down is. and where we are providing a right-in, right-out. We are proposing a right-in, right-out, but there's some flexibility. We can always work to make sure that we are locating the right-in, right-out at the most, the safest location within that stretch of the road. So we can look at that.
He never answers the question. He never really answers the question. He's good at dodging it, you know?
Okay.
One moment, Commissioner Bowman, one moment if we may. We're just looking at where the merge down is.
Actually, do you have your presentation, the original one that shows our plan of the area?
Yep.
When you live someplace too long.
So what we've tried to do is to locate a right-in, right-out at the farthest possible location on the site. And it is after the merge down. Again, it's going to boil down to driver behavior. It's at the safest possible location that we can put it. But that's not to say, as you know, some of you have discussed that there are folks who just fly through there without slowing down. So in my opinion, it's at the best and safest position that we can put that right in, right out. Again, we can't control driver behavior. We can do the best we can, but you know, people can do what they want sometimes without obeying the law.
But in your professional opinion, where you go from 2 lanes to 1 lane and also have a right turn lane, does that create the potential for additional accidents, additional rear-end accidents? Is that a hazard? Is that a danger? Is that?
Again, it depends, because one may also argue that that right turn lane, that second furthermost lane, would be used as ideal for somebody who is going to be making a right. So again, it depends on driver behavior.
Can I ask a question?
Well, you know,
Ms. Blake?
it's all good. You're not answering my question, so I'll just take into consideration what I know of the area and make my decision that way. Thank you.
So can you help me understand where y'all account for driver behavior? Because what I'm hearing is you're looking at statistics, you're looking at data, you're looking at numbers, but what the folks who live in these communities experience, there's disparity there. And so when we're here trying to reconcile what the best path forward is, where are you accounting for human behavior? I get the fact that the law says don't pass on the right, don't do this to a school bus, but that's not the reality. You know that's not the reality. So where is it, as you're developing these plans and as that you're putting proposals forth, that you incorporate or contemplate human behavior?
I think we addressed some of it, particularly you look at the right in, right out. We are trying to reduce conflict points. So basically, for the vehicles going, traveling westbound, restricting that left turn, that helps. And so what we can do is to try to minimize the conflict points around the site. And I think we are doing that with the right in, right out. And another thing that we are doing is we are widening Mountain Road to provide a bypass for vehicles that are going past left-turning vehicles into the site. So we are doing what we can to make it safer, reduce conflict points to the best that we can.
But you do understand that the issues that the gentleman had video of, they exist today.
Correct, and we are trying to mitigate that with some of these recommendations that we have on our plans.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I, can
Sure.
I just address Commissioner Blake's comment? And I say this as obviously counsel for the applicant and not the engineer or the traffic engineer on the team. As the relatively lay person, when it comes to the engineering, I understand that the traffic, the behavior of the drivers are taken into account, I'll say holistically. It's in the design of the site, it's in the design of the signage, the curbing, the way the building is laid out. It all comes into play as you're looking at putting a site together. It's part of the analysis that the entire team goes through. And when you're doing a traffic study, you're looking at the data that are provided by the ITE trip generation manual, you're looking at the data that you get from the police department, and you're asking professionals like Mr. Brown and Mr. McAvoy on the civil engineering side to determine and to design what is safe for the site. So here, taking all that into account, we've designed what in our professional opinions, and I say that because I'm reiterating what our team has said, is the safest, taking into account all of those factors. So with that, I will, that's my 2 cents on that, if I may. So Mr. Chairman, if there are no further questions from the commission,
I see one more person from the public I don't want to deny. And it is your second time to speak. I'm not going to let you go forever, but you can come up and, okay. Get to the mic. I need your name and address for the record again,
My name
please.
is Dave Rochford, 805 West Main. To answer your question, how do we take into account driver behavior? I know that it was kind of just squashed, my quick video today. I just showed you driver behavior today. And I don't want to hear personally, as a person seeing the safety concerns that are real here, to diminish it and just say, well, we've worked with the numbers, so we've taken into account driver safety best we can. I don't think the right decision when it comes to safety is ignoring it because it's not convenient to a development you want. If you want to know what driver behavior is, run the video again, listen to my commentary, take a field trip if you need to. You can see it every morning. That's driver behavior. And it's a safety problem.
Thank you. Sure.
My name is Linda Smith. I live on Linwood Drive, and we were talking about how the road comes down in front of Bellagio's or Bellagio's. Wherever this right-hand turn is going into this property, how far from Linwood Drive, the traffic coming out of Linwood Drive, is the turn going into the property? Because the cut-through that happens, these people are irate and they're turning fast, so when the traffic slows down and it's 2 lanes, 2 people going into one, and somebody's slowing down enough to turn in, you're gonna have people
You
crashing
can't,
into
actually,
the back.
you can't turn in there at that. The new plan that they have, there is no left turn if you're headed
No,
west.
I meant turning right when they're coming from, say, the Notch store, and they're going into town, and Linwood Drive is on the opposite road. If the somebody's turning onto Linwood Drive, someone's trying to turn into the gateway, and then you have the
You
oncoming.
can't turn into the gateway is what I'm saying.
I thought it was a right turn only into the gateway. Was that wrong? I thought it was right.
Oh, I'm
turn-
sorry. I thought you were talking about coming from Linwood Drive.
So what I'm saying is, Mr. Bowman, I believe, had talked about the traffic having a possible safety hazard with the traffic slowing down for a right turn into the gateway.
Yes.
And as 2 cars do merge into 1 lane, as he was explaining, there's also traffic coming off of Linwood Drive going in both ways. So if you have a car trying to turn left onto Linwood Drive and a car trying to turn right into the gateway, you have 2 cars in the 2 lanes that are merging into one that are completely stopped, trying to make their proper turns, and then I don't know how far away it is. That's my concern.
Linwood Drive's up a little bit further, I think.
Is
Yeah.
where's the,
About the
that's,
same
About 500
distance from
feet.
Yeah.
Mountain to Bellagio's? than
Yeah,
it is from
Linwood's-
Bellagio's.
oh, so it's further up, so
Yeah,
there
that's why
won't be
I
any
didn't-
concerns with people back rear-ending each other, because that's another thing. Okay, thank you for
There
letting me
could be a
ask that.
concern anywhere there, the rear ending, but as far as turning into to Linwood, that's why I didn't understand your question. I thought you meant coming from Linwood headed west and turning in, which they cannot do. And anyone from the public, one more shot?
Hello, good evening. My name is Paul Uguccini. I live on Linwood Drive Extension. I would just like to say, with all the analytics, the layout, the design, the best grade that I heard that this project was given was a D. A D, an E, and an F is what I heard. Those are not good grades for something that we would like in our neighborhood. I think we should shoot for something with higher standards. I am for affordable housing, but this intersection is not the spot. It's not the spot. Thank you. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Commission members, anything else before I let Ms. Gomes? Okay. Go right ahead.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So my job now, at presumably the end of the public hearing, is to try and essentially tie this all together in a bow for the commission, kind of summarize what we have here. And I will end with where I started tonight, which is the commission's review standard. We're looking at public health and safety here. This is a zone change petition that the zoning regulations 44A provides the commission shall approve unless there's a public health or safety concern that outweighs the need for affordable housing and which cannot be addressed by reasonable changes to the plan. We've discussed a lot during these 2 nights of public hearing. We've heard about how the building will be fully code compliant, which is dispositive of safety. We've heard how the community will provide luxury housing, not only for those able to afford the market rates, but for those who meet the income requirements for an affordable unit. We've also heard preliminary information on the site layout, site amenities, utilities which are all available for the site, stormwater which will be constructed with BMPs and in accordance with the appropriate standards, and the list goes on. In all of that information, though, the only issue that potentially implicates safety here is traffic. But even then, our position is the record confirms that there is no safety concern here. In the record, we have unrefuted expert testimony from Mr. Sullivan and Mr. Brown that there are no unusual crash patterns or crash numbers at this site. You heard Mr. Brown talk about the Yukon repository, which collects data from police stations in the area. There are no sightline concerns exiting the site. And emergency vehicle access will not be impacted by the development. Emergency vehicles and school buses alike can circulate fully on site. Therefore, on those bases alone, the community can operate safely without any adverse impacts to the surrounding road network. But for avoidance of all doubt, the applicant has gone a step further. We've revised the West Main Street driveway to a right-in, right-out to address the commissioner's concerns. I believe it was you specifically, Commissioner Strollo, about taking a left-hand turn into the community. We've added the third driveway to the south of the site along Mountain Road to allow for additional entrance into the site. And we've also proposed a number of mitigation measures that we believe are additional improvements to the existing conditions around the site. Much of the discussion, however, centered on traffic trips or congestion. Those do not equate to safety concerns. Traffic congestion does not equate to safety. We heard a lot about the grades of the site. The gentleman who just spoke, the grade A, B, C, D, those are level of service. They equate to delay. They are not safety related. And yes, there are situations where congestion correlates with safety. Mr. Brown, discussed that. But that is not one of those situations. This is not one of those situations. The vehicle trips generated by the community, which were determined using the ITE trip generation manual, will be minimal, and in any event, equal to or far less than several other uses that are permitted as of right on this site via site plan approval, including commercial uses, which people keep suggesting would be appropriate for the site. Commercial uses would also add traffic to the network. However, the numbers would be different, and in some instances, they would be far greater than what we're proposing here. Quarry Village, a nearby development, again, greater number of units than what we have proposed and larger number of bedrooms, mostly 2s and 3s, where we have 1s and 2s and a few studios, has a similar number of vehicle trips during the peak hours to what we have. And those were boots on the ground traffic counts, not just modeled with the ITE trip generation manual. But we ran the ITE numbers anyway to confirm that our numbers were conservative, the ITE numbers, and it confirms that the numbers that we predict for this community also are likely conservative. Moreover, the rates don't take into account that there is public transportation available at this site. So we have not taken use the public bus line in the area. We have also confirmed, and this is outlined in our July 2nd, that vehicle queuing in the area, people keep talking about the congestion, vehicle queuing near the site will not materially increase as a result of the community. And level of service, again, delay, not safety, not materially change as a result of this community. Therefore, the record shows, based on those and that expert testimony in the record, that there are no safety issues with the proposed plan. To add to that, you have the fire chief who has confirmed, again through Mr. Glidden, that he is okay with the plan as revised. You also have the police chief who did highlight some congestion concerns in the afternoon peak hours, but agreed that he does not have the expertise to refute our proposed trip numbers, and he did not express any concerns with safety. Congestion does not equal safety, or does not implicate safety necessarily. But the commission should keep in mind that this is just the first step in a two-step process. We're looking at just the zone change here. A lot of these issues can be further ironed out in the second step of the process, which is the special permit with site plan review. And of course, we will also have the Department of Transportation reviewing this application in connection with its encroachment permit and potentially the proposed additional improvements. So there is an additional layer of review here for safety. In summary, the 44A also requires the commission to consider compliance with a plan of conservation and development and the need for affordable housing in the region. We've discussed that ad nauseum tonight. I'm not going to go into it again, but our position is that on balance, the POCD as well as the affordable housing plan, a variety of those goals are met with this proposed community, including the fact, again, that this community was this site, was highlighted for potential redevelopment, including residential. And the affordable housing need in town is great. I don't think anyone disputes that. The data certainly does not supports that, and we have that in our affordable housing needs memo. More holistically, I'll note for the commission that the proposed plan would take a vacant, underutilized site that has been vacant for decades, mind you, and put it to a productive use while also fulfilling a great need for more housing. We're doing so while preserving the wetlands at the rear of the site, keeping all development closer to the intersection and away from the single-family residences along Mountain Road, and we're doing so with luxury units and significant amenities. With that, I will thank the commission for its time. I'll respectfully request the commission's approval, but I will note, and I did mention this throughout the public hearing, that because this is a zone change, the commission needs to set an effective date if it does approve, but it cannot impose conditions. All approval conditions will be considered and imposed at the second step of the development process if and when we get there. With that, I'll thank the commission for its time and its patience, and I will end there.
Okay, thank you. So I am going to close the public hearing tonight. What that's going to mean, I particularly don't want to vote on this tonight after what we've seen, unless you guys want to change my mind. But so the vote would happen at our next meeting, which is, do you know the date?
2 weeks from today.
2 weeks from today, and July 25th. And what happens in the meeting is, no one is not allowed to come in here. You guys are all welcome to come in here again, that's fine. But there's no comments, nothing changes. So you don't have to be here. And that includes from the applicants that are coming in. So no one will be able to speak. You could watch it on YouTube, and you're certainly welcome to come in. I know we're pretty exciting up here, but there's no comments back and forth, so that's just the way it's going to work. And I believe with the amount of signatures, it has to be a supermajority.
That is correct.
Which would take a six vote for approval, and that's the way it's going to work. So, any commission members, last shot on anything? Good. Okay. Then I'm going to close the public hearing, and thank you all for coming out. With that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Public, moved by Mr. Kaderis, seconded by Mr. Mercado. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All right, and everyone in the public, if they could just take the conversation outside, because we do have one more meeting that we have to do. So if we could get through that so we can go home too, that would be great. All right, I'd like to call to order the Planning and Zoning Commission regular meeting for Monday, July 8th, 2024. Can I get a motion to accept the minutes from the public hearing and regular meeting from June 24th, 2024? Motion by Mr. Mercado, second by Mr. Salmont. Discussion, any corrections, anything on that motion? I'm sorry, on the minutes? Okay, so Mr. Strollo's out, everybody else is in on this. Colleen, you have that? Mr. Strollo's not voting on this. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Anyone abstaining? Motion carries unanimously. Any communications come before us tonight?
You have a letter from Miller Napolitano Wolf LLC.
I saw that, yeah.
Requesting a bond reduction. This is related to the road work and other public improvements,
Mr.
which
Chairman, I'll be recusing myself on this.
Okay, Mr. Bowman.
they have finished paving the road. They have done some other public improvements out there. They're looking for a bond reduction. Staff recommends a reduction based on the improvements that they've completed so far.
Do you have a motion? Well,
Yeah, it's just simple.
it's not as simple as a motion? Okay.
Motion to.
Motion by Mr. Mercado to accept, seconded by Mr. Caderas. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Anyone abstaining? Mr. Hilsinger abstained. The motion carries 801. 1 and 2, nothing. New business. Appointment of Mr. Glidden as zoning enforcement officer. I didn't even know we had to do that.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I wish. No, but for appeal purposes, in the interim, before I hire an assistant, I am doing zoning enforcement right now, and just in case anyone appeals me, or we have to take anything to court, I need to make sure that I legally can do that. That's why this is on your agenda.
Yeah,
So.
Mr. Chairman, again, I renew my concern about the dangerous concentration of power in one individual. But with that in mind, that is my only concern. But other than that, we can move on.
He has a lot of power that he can't do anything with.
Yeah, it's okay.
All right, any other concerns with Mr. Glidden taking over the role of the zoning enforcement officer? Which is a big role. I mean, you hear from us a lot about some of the complaints that happen in this town, so it's not a joke. Someone's gotta get out there and do it, yeah. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye.
We expect them time.
Anyone against, anyone abstaining? Motion carries unanimous. Anything else to come before this commission tonight? No, sensing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Move, Mr. Caderas, seconded by everybody. Good night.
See you